Hello, everybody. Give people a few minutes to get connected. For some reason, the Facebook errors aren't allowing me to connect. I'm going to try to keep working on it. um, I don't know what's going on with this, but invite everyone you can. The Dion for Congress one is not allowing me to connect. I'm going to keep trying. I can do it on my phone, but I was hoping to do a little better one, so I'm going to do both. I'm going to try to set this up. So that people who are not my friends will also have access to it. Let's see if I can get this propped up. Okay, so hopefully between the two, whoever wants to be in on this can be in on it. So give people a few minutes to get set up. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the good camera working for the Dion for Congress. I don't know why, but here we are. So let's see. I still don't know where the okay. So we got 8 people. Looks like okay. So one thing I didn't do on the one before was really introduce myself. My name is Dion Bergeron, for those obviously who know. I am currently a real estate broker slash agent, is really what it is, a real estate agent. Indiana makes no distinction anymore. I'm in referral. I'm not active. I kind of stepped back from that a little bit. I was a truck driver, correctional officer. I've been a welder. I've worked on oil rigs, driven trucks all across the country. I've done a ton of stuff. I am now running for Congress for Indiana's 1st District. I am just a regular American dad and husband that believes we need more regular Americans in office. We have these rich politicians and legacy dynasty families that are making decisions for the rest of us without caring how they affect us. I'm going to see if I can get some comments going here. Here we go. Okay, so good. I am trying to set this up to where I can still read the comments and both ones. Excellent. Okay, so I see we have Sean. Let's see, Kenneth, can you try to post in the comments and see if anything's showing up for you? If you could just connect with Sean or Elizabeth. Right now, my wife is out picking up my oldest from work, so she is not able to participate yet, but she will be in a little while. I am going to cover a couple of things here. The first thing is right to work. I had a question earlier on my page as to how I felt about the right to work legislation and whether I'm in favor of it. I'm going to give you the short, sweet answer. I am not in favor of right to work legislation, and especially the way it's currently written. The only thing that it does is make it to where unions can not get paid. They can get no dues, but still have to represent the person. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's fair. People have been able to choose whether they wanted unions for a long time. That hasn't changed. The only thing right to work made it was so that the unions have to represent these people while they don't have to pay union dues. I don't agree with that. If you don't want to be a part of the union, that's fine. You don't have to be a part of the union. But you shouldn't reap the benefits of being a union member if you're not willing to contribute to the dues. The other part of right to work that some people may not be aware of is at Indiana State Prison, for example. I don't know all the full aspects of it. I know my particular experience. At Indiana State Prison, the right to work legislation made it to where you could be fired for any reason or no reason at all. And it didn't have to be a blanket policy. They could choose when and where and how and on whom to enforce it. So, for example, Joe would bring in a doctor's note because he couldn't make it to work, and that was fine. But Jill or Bob had the same doctor's note, and they wouldn't have to accept it. That's ridiculous. That's not something that should be okay. And I am against right to work legislation. I don't believe that those who are for it truly understand the ramifications of it. I am pro-business. I have family members who run businesses, and I am completely pro-business. But something like this does not, it's just not, it's not good, especially in its current form. I actually, during the USW meeting where they asked us about our stances on right to work, whether or not we were in favor of it. And I told them I wasn't in favor of it and why. I put that on my survey. My position on it hasn't changed. It won't change. I have personal negative experience with the right to work legislation. I'm tired of these politicians looking at us and looking at us in our eyes and lying to us. I'm not going to do that to you. I'm not going to flip flop on it. I don't care how many businesses come to me and go, but right to work legislation is really good. No, I'm not in favor of it. I think that you should be able to be terminated from a job regardless of why. And yes, there are instances where the unions do protect people who are not doing their job or whatever, but you should be responsible for unemployment insurance. And that's one of the big issues with the right to work legislation in my mind is it allows these companies to fire people and doesn't give them the option of getting unemployment. That's what happened to me at Indiana State Prison. I was sick. I had pneumonia. And they chose to not accept my doctor's note when plenty of other people's doctor's notes they accepted. I was terminated. I fought it. And the appeals process, during the appeals process, they told me, well, they can fire you for no reason whatsoever. I said, okay, that's fine. Where's my unemployment? Nope, you don't qualify because under the new rules and regulations. And I understand now that there's even more to it with the unions and being forced to represent union members, or excuse me, non-union members. It's ridiculous. I am not in favor of right to work. The next thing on the list is steel mills. I had someone ask me, there have been those that have called for the steel mills to be shut down. People that are currently campaigning because of the environmental disasters that happened, the stuff that went into the lake. Now, let me be very clear. I am 100% on the side of the steel mill workers. The mill itself, if they are responsible for this, and I say, yeah, for someone, whoever is responsible for this disaster needs to be held to account. But shutting down the steel mills and putting thousands of people out of work is not the solution. The economy in Northwest Indiana is absolutely dependent on the steel mills, and not just the people who work there, but we have people, truck drivers, suppliers, recipients of the products from the steel mill. We're talking of tens of thousands, if not more, of jobs in a ripple effect that were we to shut down the steel mills, we're looking at a complete economic downturn for the area. And I could never support that. Are you able to post in here, Kenneth? I don't think, I haven't seen anything by you, unfortunately. Maybe you're able to get with Sean. Sean, are you still able to post in the comments here? In the meantime, I'm going to tell you again, my plan for healthcare. It's a big deal. Healthcare is one of the big issues facing our nation today, and we need to make sure that people have a way to be taken care of. My idea on that is a combination of deductible security and transparent pricing, price tags in advance that you know exactly what you're signing up for. These hospitals, these doctors' offices, the vast majority of the cost for our healthcare system comes from the administration costs involved in all these doctors and hospitals and these things, deciding who pays what and how much they're going to pay and what kind of deal can we get. I want to make all that public. I want to see all of us have the opportunity to see how much we're going to pay and move from there. That's the transparent pricing. Deductible security has been in place by the state of Indiana, Whole Foods, and the country of Singapore. Singapore pays about 2% of their GDP towards healthcare costs. The United States pays over 8% of the GDP. Singapore has both of these things in effect, price tag transparency and deductible security. And they have some of the healthiest citizens in the world and pay some of the lowest cost per capita of any country, including those with so-called Medicare for all or single-payer health systems. Single-payer citizens are just as healthy, but it costs them far less. It would, if we were to institute both of these things, price tag transparency and deductible security, it would mean that we would pay far less for health insurance, for health coverage for all of our citizens, and make sure that everybody had the coverage they need for preventative care, for all these things. Those are the specific things that I've received questions on. If any of you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. I'm looking through here. I wonder if Sean, are you still able to communicate with people okay without me having any issues? If you will connect with Sean, he will be able to field any questions if for some reason you're not able to get into the comments section. We had that issue last night. I tried to get the official campaign website up and running for Facebook, and I kept getting error messages. So this is how I did it. I have my phone set up for the Dion for Congress, and then I have my regular personal Facebook set up for this one. I'm hoping that between the two, we can get as many people as we can. Again, don't hesitate to ask. I had received a couple of questions that I wasn't able to answer because they didn't show up until after the live stream was done. Someone asked, I don't remember who it was, but let's see. Someone had asked me, it might have been an individual question, but how I feel about the bailout for these companies. I don't think we should spend billions or $1 trillion to bail these companies out when the average American is expected to have 3 weeks of funding. We're expected to have emergency measures in place so that we can take care of ourselves. There's no government bailout for us. I am not in favor of bailing these companies out. If we decide to do so, it definitely should not be a gift. It should be a loan. They should have to leverage their assets against said loan. And I saw an article where Mark Cuban had actually suggested that these companies would not be allowed to buy their stock. I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Okay, so apparently I just got a message from Kenneth who says he's not able to get into the comments. Can you connect with Sean on Messenger and send your questions through him? Or you can just ask him here. I can see you here. You can ask him directly through Messenger here. I'll try to keep an eye on it for you. The other thing about this bailout, we're looking at $1 trillion plus where people want to send checks to Americans. I think that the president has to do something, and I think that this is what he's thinking of doing. I don't know that I am 100% on board. Not with the money, because people need something to be able to get through when all this stuff is shut down. I'm just not sure if cutting a check is the best way to do it. Not even that, but who gets to decide who gets what? That's the core of my issue. Is it comes down to these politicians once again decide who gets what. One of the proposals that I saw was anyone that makes over 75,000, between 75 and 90,000, and then it's a cutoff at 90,000. Here's my issue with that. You look at that on the surface, and it's like, well, that's a great idea. Anyone who makes that much doesn't need the help. I just hope that there's something in place so that people like farmers who may look like make a lot of money, by the time their expenses come out, they're not making anything. I hope that there's something in place for people like that. And not the people that are going to abuse it. I'm not talking about them. The people who claim that, oh, I make $1 million a year, but I only bring home like $4,000. No, give me a break. I'm talking about people like farmers that look like they may make 200,000, for example, but by the time they pay for their tractor and their fuel and their seeds and all the things that go into being a farmer, they make very little money. I just hope that they take that into account. I would vote against something unless it figured out a way to take care of our farmers and those of us who, the residents that may look like the small business owners, for example, that look like they may bring in a lot of money, but actually don't. So I hope that answers the question. Are you still here? I can't see who's actually in for some reason. So I'm just gonna ask Kenneth real quick. Can you see at least? Give me just one moment. Put that back right there. The next thing I'll talk about is, unless anyone else has specific topics, the next thing I'll go to is telecampaigning. This has been interesting. On the one hand, I really want to get out there and knock on doors and meet the voters. On the other, they're talking about shutting down non-essential travel. I don't want to put my family, but more importantly, anyone at risk. I'm not sure how to go about doing this the best way. I'm going to try to have a lot more virtual meet and greets. I'm going to have at least 2 of these a week, kind of virtual town hall / meet and greets, to where people can ask the questions that they really want to know the answers to, and I have no problem with sending me those questions in advance. So is anyone else having problems with the video jumping around? Kenneth just told me that he can see the feed, but there are apparently connection issues. That's why I have both. Maybe try the other one. Kenneth, I have both my personal and congressional one up and running. I don't know which one's going to work better. That's why I was hoping that this would work with the laptop a little better. My personal feed is on the laptop. My Dion for Congress feed is on my phone. I don't know, maybe at the end I'll compare the two and see which one seems to be better. Looks like maybe the image quality might be a little bit better on the phone, but it's hard to say. I know it makes me look more bald than I actually am, but that's all right. I don't care about that. Okay, the census. What do you think they asked too many questions on the census? I actually haven't had a chance to read mine yet. I do think, personally, I think that we should know if these people are citizens. That was the big thing going around was, how dare you ask if someone's a U.S. citizen? Well, I think it's pertinent. I think it's important. I mean, if they refuse to answer, kind of that kind of tells you, at least an idea of which way they would have answered had they been honest, in my opinion. Uh, I guess I'll cover voter ID while we're on the topic. I am wholeheartedly in favor of voter ID. I think that we need to know who's voting in our elections. I think we need to make sure that it's citizens that are voting in our elections. So that's one of the issues that we're having now with this coronavirus scare is and everything that goes along with it. There are states that are shutting down all non-essential travel. There are states that are saying stay in your homes. Ohio has already postponed their election. Indiana is discussing doing the same. There's nothing official yet. If they do so, there's talk of these mail-in ballots, and I will say the security is far less on these than I would like it to be. There's no way to confirm whether these people actually should be voting or if they are who they say they are. On the other hand, how are you going to allow people to vote when you don't want to expose these elderly poll workers to potential infection from all these people coming in to vote? So, is there a specific question on the census that you had, or is it just in general? It's important to stay hydrated. Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So I have a question. How would I help the lower classes?
Lower classes.
How would I help the lower classes when they're struggling? Well, for one, I think we need a complete and total revamp of the tax system. We're looking at companies like Amazon that pay $0 in federal taxes, whereas the lower class has to pay sales taxes. And even those that are able to get a tax refund at the end of the year, we've still paid taxes all throughout the year into it. I don't see any interest on that money that the federal government has held for me all this time. There are many things that I think we could do much, much better as far as making sure that the lower and middle classes are taken care of. There seem to be all these tax breaks for people who can afford a good tax attorney. That's one of, or accountant. That's one of the things that I think need to be addressed. I'd like to see perhaps a 17% flat tax rate with no one under a certain income around 50,000 paying any taxes whatsoever. That's one thing that's been proposed by Steve Forbes, who's not a huge fan of Donald Trump, as I'm sure you can tell, but by some of the articles published by Forbes. But he did have some interesting thoughts on the flat tax rate. 11% doesn't seem to be enough to make sure that the government could continue, whereas anything higher than 17%, I think, would be an overstretch. 17% seems to be the ideal number. I'd be in favor of something like that. General thoughts on the census. Back to that question now that I can see it here. I think it's critical. I think the census needs to be done. I think we need to know, who's in our country. I actually would like to see more questions on the census. I'd like to see some way to verify who the people actually are that are filling out the census. Perhaps require driver's license number or ID. Yes, tax day should definitely be delayed because of the coronavirus. I do agree wholeheartedly with that. Just with the owing money portion of it, I think that those who are due money should absolutely go ahead and get your taxes turned in. But to delay the tax, I think that's a good idea. I think it's a step in the right direction versus just handing out money. I believe that there are many things like that we can do to make it easier for especially like small business owners generally owe taxes. Things like that can help them get through between now and whenever this is over. I think that's a good, like I said, a good step in the right direction. There are other things that we could perhaps do. I'd like to see some of these politicians try to live on what the average family lives on. I think that would be a good start. Maybe and there was the guy in New York, I believe, that said he was going to live. He took the food stamp challenge where he was going to live on just the amount that an individual gets for food stamps. I think it was at the time like $150 a month or something, and feed himself with that. I think a lot more politicians and people who make decisions in our government should have to do that. I believe that they would have a very different opinion of some of the programs that we have set up as a social safety net if they had to do so. I am not for writing blank checks for everyone, as far as, yeah, don't work, it's okay, we'll take care of you. But those people who can't work, or those people who lost their job due to no fault of their own, I believe that that's what these programs are set up for. That's what these companies pay tons of money for, and what we as taxpayers pay lots of money for, is so that we can have things like that. Uh, I am it always kills me, and I want to be very clear. There are good people on both sides of the aisle, despite what you may hear, just like there are bad people on both sides of the aisle. Corruption doesn't care what party you are, doesn't matter. And just like you can't judge the quality of a person by the letter behind their name, you can't judge a party by people in it. There are plenty of people from both sides who are just scum of the earth, unfortunately, and they care more about filling their wallets than they do about the people in their district. I am more than happy to tell everyone I don't have all the answers. I wish I did. It certainly would make things a lot easier because I could just crank them out. But even if I did have all the answers, the chances of going in and just blanket getting everyone to pass what's best for everyone, all we can do is support people from each of our areas that we believe are trying to truly go in and make a difference. Apparently, we're having some issues, just like we did before, with people able to comment. Connect with my wife, Elizabeth, on her Facebook, and you can pass her messenger. No? Isn't that working? Oh, you don't see those. Okay, hold on. Tariffs. Okay. Oh, there we go. Now it popped up. Okay, let's talk about tariffs. They were absolutely needed, and they are helping. I will say the steel mills unfortunately overinvested, and that's causing its own problems. But I am 100% in favor of whatever we can do to put American manufacturing and American workers above the rest of the world. Free trade is a misnomer because nothing in this world is free. China, India, somewhere else was dumping billions of dollars of low quality steel in our market. There are airplanes that are the bottoms are just falling out of. We need to protect our industries. I'm all for trade. I'm all for making things better. I'm all for having an equitable relationship with other countries, but tariffs were a good start. They were a good start. I think that we need more legislation. The one area that I do believe we need more legislation versus less is ways to protect American businesses and companies on the global market. I'm pro-America. I mean, America first. We live here. This is our home. We have to take care of our home. Just like they say charity begins at home, it absolutely does. We have to put America before the rest of the world. I'll tell you what my priorities are If I get elected, my priorities in this order are District 1, State of Indiana, the Midwest, the United States, our allies, then the rest of the world, in that order. People want to talk about how kumbaya the globalist market is, and we're experiencing the downside of the globalist market right now with our medical supplies, with our pharmaceuticals all being made in China. Over 90% of the things that we need are produced in a foreign country. Why? How did we allow it to get to this point? And again, politicians making deals that are good for them, but not for their constituents. That's just dumb. It really is. One little kind of side step for a moment. I remember a story back in the I believe it was the 90s, where they drove past the parking lot of the GM workers, and so many of the cars in that lot were Toyotas and Hondas and things like that. I believe that we have done a horrible job at explaining to our people why it's so important to buy American, why we should spend a little bit more, sometimes quite a bit more, granted, but in general, a little bit more to take care of our American businesses, our American workers. I'm all for an open market. I believe that the market fixes a lot of things if we just stay out of it. But I do believe that we should absolutely stack the deck in favor of this country. It's our country. We are the citizens of this country. We should care about this country more than the rest of the world. I really have a problem understanding why that's so difficult for people. You have any more right now? Okay. Like I said, sometimes for some reason, some of the comments aren't showing up on the feed. So if you aren't seeing the comment feed, or you're typing and it's not showing up, or if I'm not responding to questions that you're asking, send a Facebook Messenger to Elizabeth, and she will try to make sure that I answer your questions. Let's see. I think that I'm caught up on that. Let me make sure. Let's see. I've also been told that the feed is cutting in and out for some people. I hope you aren't having too many issues. Trying to make sure I look at both cameras here. Recap for those who just joined. I tried to get on my actual Congress page the laptop connection, and I kept getting an error message. So I'm using my phone for the Dion for Congress, and I'm using the laptop for my actual personal account. But hopefully this will allow whoever isn't able to connect with the other the ability to go through one. If for some reason if I'm not answering your questions, or if they're not showing up here, just send a Facebook Messenger question to Elizabeth Mouch Bergeron, and she will make sure that I answer it. She won't let me go until I answer everybody's questions. So in the meantime, while I'm waiting for more questions, let's talk about how this virus has changed everybody's lives. I've got people that are talking about they can't go to work now because everything's been shut down. What I would like to see, there have been some very good community groups on Facebook that I've noticed. I'm not sure about other social media platforms, but they're offering help and ideas on places that you can go to get staples, because for some reason, some people seem to believe that they're going to need 6 months worth of toilet paper. It is what it is. it's good to see. It's good to see. I think it's one of those situations where we as Americans can rise above the negative and reinforce the positive. My beautiful wife puts out a list every day of positive things, little good news things. So I think we need a lot more of that and a lot less fear mongering from the press. And while I'm thinking about it, there are apparently people going around claiming that this or that will cure it or do this. No, there are no cures out there. Don't allow some disgraced TV pastor or anyone else to tell you that there's some crazy concoction that will cure your ills. It's not. The other thing is with the expected Treasury Department checks that are going to go out, it's going to be a prime time for scammers to call you and tell you, oh, we can get you your money faster or something like that. The FTC put out a press release, which I shared, that be on the lookout for that. There's no one that can get you your money faster. The government will not call you and ask you for your social security number or your bank account information or anything like that. So please do not fall for that. I know a lot of the elderly don't understand how the digital system works, and they've been scammed many times before, and I'm sure they will some more. There's also many rumors going around about people who are going around knocking door to door. Apparently, my phone shut down trying to reconnect, but I give that a second. Maybe move it over here and see if it can get a better signal. I'll let it try to reconnect and see. Okay, so I'll keep going on this while waiting for that to reconnect. I don't know. We have good Wi-Fi. I don't know why it's having an issue, but it is. So, Second Amendment. I am for there we go. Yeah. Hopefully, people will connect back to it. I'm very pro Second Amendment. I will protect your right to keep and bear arms. I will not vote for anything that's going to restrict that. I published my surveys for the NRA and the National Association of Gun Rights. I am a firm believer in the Second Amendment. Anyone who's seen the back of my truck knows that I have a big American flag with the Second Amendment printed on it. There's not a gun problem in this country. We have these politicians getting on TV, uneducated politicians, talking about how we need less guns, or the big favorite is common sense gun legislation. My question is, common sense to whom? Reasonable to whom? Anytime you start talking about loaded words like reasonable or common sense, you wonder who's making these decisions. Just like with hate speech and hate crimes, it always comes down to in whose opinion. Because when you have people making these decisions, a lot of this is open to interpretation, and that's my issue with any sort of legislation that further erodes the constitutional protection that is afforded us for the Second Amendment. One thing that people seem to be mistaken on is that the Constitution grants us these rights. No, these rights are human rights. They are protected by the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't grant us any rights. It just keeps the government from taking more of them away. When I was this is something that I guess was asked. When I was in Indianapolis, I went down to the Congress of Counties. I got to shake hands with the governor. Yay. I also met a gentleman running for, I actually met two of the men running for Indiana's Attorney General position. And one was John Westerkamp. I really like the guy. He seems very, very honest. He's actually been to every county in Indiana. He is very, very pro Second Amendment. And more importantly, he understands the office of the Attorney General and what is required. We asked him if he would be trying to go after these counties that are not prosecuting certain crimes. And he understood immediately that corruption was the biggest issue. And he's the first one that I heard talk about that, especially up here in Northwest Indiana. He said, we can take all this stuff seriously, and we absolutely should take prosecutors choosing what crimes to prosecute seriously. But the AG's office is not set up to be a prosecutor's office, and we would need phenomenal funding. He said, if we're going to go after people, then it should be on the basis of corruption. And him and I talked for a little while about how bad it is up here, and he understood that's one of the main reasons why I support Westerkamp for Attorney General versus some of the other ones. It's nothing against them. I'm sure they're very good at their jobs. I'm sure they'll be fine, but he really seemed to get it. Westerkamp definitely seemed to understand some of the corruption issues up here and why that's important. Any other direct questions? Do you have anything new? Yeah. Okay, let's see. Okay, so one of the things that I've been asked about is home health care industry. A lot of people don't understand how or why it would affect them if they don't have a person, for example, who needs home health care. What do they care? Why do they care how service providers are paid or paid so little or whatever? First of all, this is something that will absolutely affect a large portion of our community, especially with the shortage of staff. We're going to have Alzheimer's and dementia patients wandering the streets, putting themselves in danger and others in danger. There are not enough staff. There is a severe staff shortage in the industry. I watched my wife when she worked for a company that did it's called a direct service provider, and she would have to leave the house at 11:30 at night because someone wasn't able to make it to their shift or didn't show up, or many, many, many reasons. She was constantly having to cover shifts. Thankfully, she moved up to a different job. She's a case manager now, and luckily she doesn't have to do that anymore. But there are a total lack of qualified individuals. I would like to see a database put forth for the ones that have abused people and have been fired for this. Currently, there's no way to track these people. They can move somewhere else and work with someone else who is at risk. And unfortunately, it seems to be two extremes. It's either people who are truly passionate about it, which they still have bills to pay too, and those that can't get a job anywhere else. That's kind of the last option for them, and they don't care. Minimum wage, that's a tough one. The market, I think, has done a fairly good job with keeping up. McDonald's and other areas around here are far above, well, I say far, but are above minimum wage. Some people are completely against any minimum wage at all. Some people want to see a $15 an hour minimum wage. I'm going to tell you that every small business owner that I've talked to said a $15 an hour flat minimum wage would destroy their business. It would either force them to cut hours severely on their employees, or many of them would be forced to shut their doors. I I don't think that there's an across the board perfect answer about minimum wage. I can understand both sides of the argument. I get it. I don't think that a $15 an hour across the board minimum wage is going to solve anything. I just don't, because even if you institute that minimum wage across the board, the ones that are going to work every day and getting, what about all those people, for example, that have worked hard and got themselves up to 15.10 an hour or 14.85? It minimizes the hard work that these people put in to get themselves well above minimum wage. And again, everything is just going to go up anyway. And there are other areas that, for example, the home healthcare industry, that aren't able to increase the price of their products to offset that cost. There are many companies that would end up going out of business. I do think that the minimum wage should probably be looked at a little bit. I would like to see a little boost. We're still one of the lowest in the nation. Well, flat, straight, federal, nothing higher. So we're right with the rest of them that aren't any higher. I would like to see a small increase, perhaps 75 cents, bring us up to $8 an hour minimum wage. But McDonald's and many other fast food restaurants already pay that. They already pay over $8 an hour because minimum wage isn't enough anymore. Seattle, for example, had instituted their $15 an hour minimum wage. And I will say you have to look at all the data involved, because people were predicting that a lot of these businesses were just going to shut their doors, and many did. Let's be very clear. There were many businesses that did not survive that, but other businesses thrived. One thing that people don't talk about, though, is the number of people who go outside where that district is, where that was set up. I think it just flashed again. In order to look at prices, let's look at McDonald's, for example. McDonald's in the Seattle area is $15 an hour minimum wage flat. They don't talk about the people that drive 15 minutes outside the Seattle metropolitan area where it's perhaps a couple of dollars cheaper, and so they can save 25 cents on their hamburger or whatever. There's no data for that. So we need to look at all the data before we make sweeping changes. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. The next thing Sean asked, do you support reforming Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid for my generation, millennials? Reform? Yes. There definitely need to be some changes. The first change I would do is remove the cap on Social Security. There is no reason that we have to pay a percentage of our income into Social Security, but those that make over what is it, 134,000, I believe, is the cap. Anything above that, is not taxed into Social Security. So people are making millions of dollars and only have Social Security payments taken out. Well, their pay into Social Security taken out on the first $134,000 of that money. That's ridiculous. Absolutely not. Raise the cap. Personally, I say eliminate the cap, but at least significantly raise it. That alone will infuse Social Security with a lot of the money that it needs to continue to be around for future generations. It makes no sense to me why this is even a thing. Medicare and Medicaid, both of these programs are absolutely critical. Yeah, it's somewhere around there, Sean. Sean said I think it's 120,000. It's somewhere. I was looking at the data. I want to say around the 120. It's somewhere between 130 and 140, definitely in there. Anything above that, income-wise, people don't pay any Social Security tax on. FICA that comes out of your paycheck and represents a large portion of your money, they have no problem taking. But for some reason, anything above that, they're no. That alone would have been responsible for billions of dollars into Social Security to make it far more solvent. Uh, it, it boggles my mind that these people allowed us 137. Okay, thank you, Sean. Sean said he looked it up and it's 137,000. I knew it was right around the 130s, between 120 and 140. So yeah, it makes no sense. As far as Medicare goes, one of my proposals that I would like to see considered, preferably make it happen. There are a significant portion of our elderly population that are living on just Social Security. That's their only income. I would like to see some help. They're still paying their Medicare premium because they don't have a choice. Approximately $134 a month comes out before they ever see their money. I would like to see that. I would like to see some kind of help given to these people. When we had the ACA pass through, there was talk about premium assistance, and people were able to get online eventually when it finally worked. Were able to get on there and sign up, and the government took care of their premium and all this stuff. Nothing was ever done for the people getting Medicare. That's an absolute a necessity as far as I'm concerned, because these people who are living, and yeah, you can say, well, they should have did this or they should have did that. For whatever reason, they didn't or couldn't, and they're again the most vulnerable of our population, and we should take care of them. We should take care of them, even if it doesn't mean giving them more money. Allow the money that they do get to stretch a little further by helping them out with the Medicare premium. The next question I have here is, how much would I raise the cap for Social Security buy-in? I'd like to see it eliminated. Is there a reason that these people making $400 or let's say $4 million a year aren't paying taxes on all $4 million of that? Doesn't make sense to me. Again, if we could eliminate the cap, if this is income, I have to pay income on mine, or I have to pay taxes on my income. I'm sure many of you have to pay taxes on your income. Why is it okay for these people to get away with not paying taxes because they make more than us by far? That's ridiculous. Next question is, why is buying health insurance across state lines a bad idea? Okay. I'm not going to say that it's a bad idea, but I'm going to tell you what some of the downfalls are for that. Let's say that, let's look at car insurance, for example. I know they're two different things, but just bear with me for a moment. Illinois and Michigan have what's called no-fault car insurance. That means if you get into an accident, there's no such thing as fault. It doesn't matter who did what. Injuries and fatalities being a different story, but just in general, fender bender, you pay for your car, they pay for theirs. There's no fault. It is what it is. Anyone who's gotten into an accident with somebody from another state, it sucks, or especially if you're over there in that state. Now, the reason this is important is because different states have different laws for insurance. So the rules for Indiana are different than the rules for Michigan or Ohio. What this means is when you go to get insurance, this insurance might not cover a certain procedure, or it might be different rules than what Indiana permits or requires. The other thing about buying insurance across state lines is you have the potential where these insurance companies can go, well, you're a high-risk career, so because you're a police officer, for example, or a firefighter, or any number of other high-risk careers, we're not going to cover you, or we're going to jack up the premium so high that there's no way you could afford it anyway. That's what I see as the biggest problem with across state lines insurance buying. I haven't seen anyone address what we would do. The only way that I could see that being a way that we could fix it is to make nationwide requirements and make all the rules the same. Now, if we're going to do that, that kind of voids the benefits of buying insurance across state lines. It also would again, it would just void the benefits, because if everything's going to be the same as far as insurance goes, there'd be no reason to go outside state lines, because all the premiums are going to resemble each other. Also, the premiums are going to be different in Kansas than they are in urban Chicago. You might get a plan for out of Kansas, if we're allowed to buy across state lines, that is much cheaper than the plan you can get in Chicago, until you go to get treatment or go to look for someone who actually takes this insurance. That's where you're going to that's where we're going to have problems, and that's my biggest hurdle. I think what I believe the biggest hurdle is against buying insurance across state lines. I think that's the issue. Someone I was talking with someone about it. I don't remember who it was, but I talked about the only way that I could see making it feasible is perhaps an executive order, but that executive order would have to be so broad. And then even so, once that president's no longer in office, it could be easily reversed, and then we're right back to where we started. I think that the only way we're going to have good quality health care is it has to be market driven. There's a reason that people come to the United States for medical tourism. It has to be market driven. It has to be affordable, and it has to be universal. It has to be something that anyone can get. And the only way that I can see us accomplishing that is the two things that I talked about earlier: price tag transparency and deductible security. Which, if you look up Singapore's health plan, their health insurance, and state of Indiana, Whole Foods, state of Indiana and Whole Foods use the deductible security portion of it. If we were to institute complete price tag transparency, pass it through Congress, make it a requirement. I'm not a big fan of forcing businesses to do anything. I love the free market, especially in the country, not between countries, but here in America. I'm a huge fan of the free market. But there are times when we need to change the rules a little bit. And I believe that the time has come, healthcare wise, that it's time to change the rules a little bit. It's time to stop protecting these insurance companies and big drug companies that are showing record profits while we're spending billions of dollars a year just on prescriptions. It's insane. It makes no sense. So we have another question. Oh, okay. My amazing wife does not want to be on camera. I tried to talk her into sitting next to me and fielding questions, but she is not interested. So she's writing down a question now. If anyone in the meantime has something, if it shows up. I don't know why you can't just talk, but okay. Okay, so let's talk about the other Republican candidates. I know it's kind of deep into it. Maybe I should have started with this. But let's talk about why I would make a better choice. First of all, I haven't seen all their proposals. I've gone through their websites a little bit. I've looked at their ideas. Most of it is very vague, and I will admit that there's not a lot of meat. I think that each of the Republican choices here have some really good ideas. I think we all do, and I will say that I am absolutely thrilled that none of us are career politicians. There is not a single one on the Republican side that is a career politician. In fact, none of us have held office before, to the best of my knowledge. But I'll go through each of them. For those who don't know, there are a total of 6 people running for the Republican nomination. There is Wild Bill. He's a trip. Apparently, when we were at the Duneland Chamber of Commerce, they had a little candidate forum where they had all of the candidates stand up and give a little bit about themselves. Bill Powers stood up and said that he joined the Army Air Corps. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, I didn't initially. That was the Air Force before it was the Air Force. That's so awesome. I hope that through all this, I hope I'll get a chance to sit down with the guy and hear some of his stories, because there's a lot of history there. He doesn't have any social media. He doesn't have any website. I think that that's critical. Every other thing aside, that's critical with communicating with your voters these days. How are people supposed to get in touch with him if he were to win? I just don't see that as a viable option. 1 second. Again, I'm open. I will tell you whatever you want to know. The next candidate on the list is Delano Scaife. I don't know much about Mr. Scaife. I looked at his website. He ran as a Democrat in 2018, 2016. 2018, yeah. He ran for state representative as a Democrat. I don't know exactly what changed, if he changed, if the party changed. The last time I checked his website, it was still set up for his run for state office. So I don't know really where he stands on a lot of things. I find that to be an issue. Mont Hanley seems like a really good guy. I think he needs to polish his public speaking skills a little more. I hope he's working on that. Again, the websites, yeah. There's I've heard from more than one person that they've reached out to candidates and have had a hard time getting in touch with them. I pride myself on being able to be easily reached. All you have to do is hit me up on any of my social media. The phone number listed on my website and my business cards is my personal cell. I don't have an office. I don't have people fielding things for me. I am very easy to reach. I pride myself on that. I think that's absolutely important. If these people are hard to reach now, how much harder is it going to be once they're actually elected and in Congress the whole time? I know that some of them are working a full-time job, and I get that. I understand that. But there are people that have told me they haven't heard from some of these people in days. They've reached out and are still waiting to hear back. That's a problem. That's a problem. If you're difficult to reach now, what about when you get elected? So what? Yeah, let's talk about the rest of the candidates. Mark Leyva. Mark Leyva has run multiple times. He seems to be a good guy. I've heard from people that I trust that he's a good, honest guy. I believe that. I just don't agree with some of his policies. I don't agree with some of the ways that he goes about interacting, for example. That's just the way it is. He's also refused to show up for debates. We tried to get him to come to the debate in Hobart that Chris Wells is setting up. He wanted, first it was, well, if you do this, I'll come, and if you do that, I'll come, and all of this. And then finally it was nothing. He wasn't going to show up. If you're not willing to get on the debate stage, then I have a question that you're going to be the best representative. I think that it's absolutely important. And it's not just about public speaking skills. It's about getting people to understand what you really represent, what kind of person you really are, and what your platform is. Do you stand for this? Are you for that? Are you against this? And videos are only going to do that so much. Me sitting here talking to you, as I plan on doing plenty of these, but it's also important to see how everyone is in a real debate, because if you can't handle it against fairly friendly Republican opponents, you're going to get crushed in the general. That's just unfortunately the way it is. I think that's really important. He won't come to. He hasn't been to any uh, debates. He hasn't been to any forums, at least none that I've been to, and I've been to everyone I've been invited to, with the exception of one because there was a conflicting event. Other than that, I've been to everyone that has reached out, and Mark Leva hasn't been to a single one. That's not the kind of representative we need. We need someone who's willing to get up in front of the public and say, "This is what I believe, and I will represent your interests," and show that. And he's not doing that. So the last guy, Spencer Lemons. Spencer, again, seems like a great guy. All of the Republicans seem like good people. I'm really happy about that. Spencer is a police officer in Hobart. He, again, I've been told, hey, this guy works full time. He doesn't have as much time as you. Okay. He also has a team that is helping him. I think it kind of balances out. I've been told he takes a little bit to get back to people, and I don't know if that's true. But one of the things that kind of separates me from Spencer is he has the experience of being a police officer, which I have the experience of being a correctional officer, but I also have that experience from being on the other side. When I was 19 years old, I got arrested for criminal damage to coin-operated vending machines. Very, very stupid, very kid thing to do. And no, I didn't kick a Coke machine to death. I sprayed salt water in the dollar bill slot, and it was a misdemeanor. It was dumb. But I got sentenced to a year. Apparently there was a rash of those things going on. I had no idea that. I just knew that all of a sudden the prosecutor was like, "Oh, you don't pay, boy." Okay. So unfortunately, I got sentenced to a year, which in Louisiana was 2 for 1. So I did 6 months. And during that time, between that and many years later, when I became a correctional officer, that caused me to straighten up. It was actually one of the best things that could have happened to me. But I have experience on both sides. I can look at what's happening on this side of the bars from this experience, and on that side from this experience, and I can empathize with both. I think that's one of the key points missing from many representatives across the nation, not just here in Indiana, and not just in Congress, but local positions as well. Is many of these people have no idea what it's like to get that green NIPSCO bill, for example, or have to choose between paying for this or feeding your kids. They have no idea, no clue. And unfortunately, I think that we need a lot more regular people willing to get up there and run for office and put themselves out there. I would just say if I had to come up with one sentence kind of as to what separates me from everyone else, is that I've been on both sides. I can understand what those who are completely in favor of social welfare and the Medicare for all and all of that, what they want and why they want it. I can empathize. I can understand. Just like I can understand the other side that's like, no, you should have to work for everything, and the government shouldn't take care of you, and businesses should drive the market. And I get both sides. I understand it. And I think that's why I'm the best choice to represent Northwest Indiana, because we do have such a varied population. We have people from all sides of the political spectrum. We have people from all sides or all areas of income. We have people who are on disability or SSI, just like we have people who live in Long Beach, for example, where we have some of the most concentration of millionaires anywhere else in the state per square mile. They all deserve representation, just like the mansions, the trailer parks deserve representation too. The mobile home communities, the HUD housing, the Section 8, all these people deserve representation. And it seems like many times we get these representatives who only care about the people who are willing to put money in their wallet. And I think that that's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And I'd like to see more. I'd like to see more people, just in general, speaking up for the average Americans. And I'll tell you, that's one of the things that people love about Donald Trump, and it's why his base supporters will never abandon him, is because during the 2016 election, Donald Trump stood up and said, hey, these people have been forgotten about, and I'm not going to forget about them. I'm not going to ignore them anymore. And that's what a lot of these, especially far left liberals don't get. But he did this and but he did that. Don't you understand? And it just comes down to, yeah, we do understand. Especially the hardcore, diehard, flying the Trump flag on the truck kind of people it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because Donald Trump stood up and spoke for us when no one else would. And that's why people are so supportive of him. I will be the first to tell you, there's some stuff he puts on Twitter that I'm like, really, dude, really. But I support especially what he's done with making America first again, about stepping up and saying, hey, we've paid all this money to all these other countries for so long. Why are we doing that? Especially these countries that hate us. So, do you have anything else? Hi, it's my cat. Hello. You want to come up here? Oh, okay. It's my fat black cat. Here you go, people cat. What? It's my cat. I love my cat. Looking through here to see. I'm not seeing any other questions. Again, if for some reason you can't see comments in the actual stream, you can ask them via Facebook Messenger to Elizabeth Mouch Bergeron, and she will pass them along to me, even though she refuses to be on camera. She's not. Yeah, that's right. I don't want to be on camera. All right. Okay. Another thing that I'll talk about while I'm here is for those of you that are helping to spread the message about me, I really, really appreciate it. That is absolutely critical, especially now with the way things are. I like the fact that so many people are getting involved this election, not just the politicians and the people that they pay, but regular people that are going out of their way to help share the message. Let's see, I have a comment here. I like how you admitted to seeing both sides of the bars. Many of us have seen that too, and no one else gets it. Yeah, absolutely. Just one interesting thing that I found when I worked at Indiana State Prison is there were those officers that seemed to believe that just because someone had committed a crime, it made them horrible people. And let me be very clear, there were those people that were horrible people that would talk about the crimes that they committed, and they seemed to relish it, and I will never be able to convey that to another person, nor would I try, because it's some very sick stuff. There are absolutely people who are irredeemable. However, the vast majority of people that are in jail or even in prisons messed up, understand they messed up, and are just trying to do their time and go home. That is part of the problem with the prison system and the way it's set up, the way it's designed. There are those that just don't understand. Okay, so I got a question here. Have you forgotten about visiting small towns in Porter County and Southern Lake County? And the answer is no, I have not forgotten. It was actually my intention to get out there and do door knocking. I'm still going to do that, but like I said earlier, I just don't know how. I don't know how people are going to see that. I don't want to take a chance on accidentally, because obviously I wouldn't do it on purpose. I don't want to take a chance on accidentally spreading something. But I think if I give plenty of distance, knock on the door, back away a little bit, I think it'll be fine. I absolutely am intending to visit all the small towns. With the library, I had planned on having meet and greets and doing fundraisers in places like Couts and lacrosse, things like that. That's kind of a wrench in the works because the libraries aren't allowing anything like that, and obviously you're not supposed to have any groups. So it's thrown a wrench in the works, but I'm still going to try to get out there and do some door knocking and do that. Okay. Absolutely success. The question was, what are your thoughts on Donald Trump negotiating with North Korea? Was it successful or a failure? Absolutely a success, because if you look at the number of missile tests, we had a missile test every other week under the previous administration. And just kind of an interjection here real quick. Those are like, stop comparing Trump to Obama. Who are you supposed to compare him to? You always compare presidents with the previous administration and previous other administrations. That's just how you do it. It's absolutely a success. You look at, he was actually able to meet with him versus standing there with binoculars on the other side of the demilitarized zone. The number of missile tests went from constant to, I think, there was one since they met. We know that Kim Jong-un isn't going to just agree to all his demands. That's not what's going to happen. And he may tell us, oh yeah, we're going to do this, but instead do that. That's what dictators do. That's just the way it is. But if you look at actual facts, which is the number of missile tests have dropped to virtually zero. Like I said, I think there might have been the one, but other than that, since the agreement, that's been it. The next question here is, how would you get new voters/youth involved in this election? Well, for one, social media is key. And yeah, Facebook's a part of it, but my understanding is the younger generation look at Facebook as for the boomers. So we have to do more on Twitter. We have to do more on Instagram and Snapchat. But more importantly, we have to make them feel like their voice matters. I was told by a young man named Nathan Patrick that when he first got involved, that he was made to feel like his opinion didn't matter. Like, because he wasn't an older gentleman, because he was young, they kind of let the adults talk. And we need to not have that approach. We need to not even portray that, even accidentally, because every single person's vote is just as important as the next person. An 18-year-old's vote is just as important as a 45-year-old's vote. They both have the same weight. I think that that's really important. We need to do a better job of conveying that. I think that we need to show people that we listen, that they matter, that we care. That's also what I try to do when talking to people from all walks of life, that we need more, for lack of a better term, respect. respect. I was going to say something else, but we need more respect across age lines. It's very easy to dismiss someone because they're young. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Some young people that I've talked to are a heck of a lot more in touch with what's really going on than some of the older people I've talked to. They're starting to realize that the various news organizations, from CNN to Fox, are not telling the whole story, and it's refreshing to see that. Got anything else? Not right now. Okay, so we're at 1 hour 20 minutes. Unfortunately, apparently the phone one has shut off several times, so I'm not sure how I'm gonna make that one work. Those who saw it on that one, I'm gonna post that's the official one. I'm gonna post the personal one on my Dion for Congress, and hopefully you'll be able to see it. If does anyone else have a question, you can send it also to my messenger directly, and I will see it on the phone here. I think that we all need to pay a lot more attention to what our government is doing. I think that we've been taken advantage of as a public for far too long. We are far too trusting of our politicians, and it's one reason why I am trying to be as absolutely transparent as I can. All my surveys, all my stances on things, I try to make those as public as possible, because how else are you supposed to get to know these people? Not just me, but anyone running, especially those of us who haven't held a public office before. You have no record of voting. What do we do, right? And one way we can make people see the way we believe and the things that are important to us is by publishing these surveys. For one, do them. That's another thing is I'm seeing a distinct lack of information online about certain candidates, and I think that's a problem. That's a problem. Okay, so I was asked my thoughts on FISA. Okay, that's a big discussion, but I'm going to tell you that FISA is an issue. The entire Patriot Act is unconstitutional and is an eroding away of rights that were enshrined that we just freely gave away. We were tricked. I don't believe that they are going to fix it. And ultimately what it comes down to is a secret court having secret hearings that no jury is involved in. It takes out regular people out of the equation completely. I have a problem with that. I absolutely have a problem with that. The courts, the way they were set up, there's a reason there's a jury or your peers. There's a reason that there are grand juries impaneled for court proceedings, because these lawyers can get away with a lot of stuff when they're the only ones communicating. When it isn't regular people like you and me involved, they can write up anything they want. Look at what happened with the Trump campaign and the spying. Even if you're of the opinion that maybe the first one might have been okay, everything else was poisoned after that. The FISA courts, personally, in my opinion, the Patriot Act itself needs to be gone. I understand the fear of terrorism. I don't know if you've noticed, but what exactly has happened that the FISA courts were able to stop? No, we're not told any of that. Maybe if we said, oh, you know what, this happened, and because of FISA, we were able to make this not happen, it might be something that we could consider. But in general, we're kept in the dark. So why should we let them keep us in the dark? Make this stuff public. All of these court cases, these FISA proceedings should be public, especially after the fact. If you're not going to do that, then no, get rid of it. We've already seen massive fraud involved with it. We've already seen an absolutely partisan process involved with this court that doesn't have a leg to stand on as far as constitutionality goes. It's all of it. All of it is a horrible mistake. And I personally, one of the first things that I would do is try to get rid of the FISA courts. I'd like to get rid of the Patriot Act in its entirety and go back to being, constitutional. We give away our rights way too freely, and I was one of the champions of it. I was like, oh yeah, we need to get these terrorists. Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah. We were tricked. We were lied to. A lot of times we didn't even understand what we were cheering on. But now that hindsight is 2020, I can look at it and go, oh my God, why was I in favor of that ever? It is what it is. Let's see. We have Brandon said, I hope you swing through LaPorte County. I think everyone here needs to hear your message. I live in LaPorte County, Brandon. I live in Michigan City. If they'll loosen up some of these travel issues and allow people to actually have a gathering, I'd love to have a meet and greet down in for example, Westville, La Crosse, stuff like that. I'm going to continue to do the virtual stuff while I can. While I have you here, the end of the message, March 30th, we're going to have the Republican debate at the Arts Theater. Unfortunately, we're not able to have an actual gathering because of all this going on. But what we're going to do, Christopher Wells, what we're going to do is we're going to do remotely. I think all of us, the actual candidates, are going to get together and have some good camera equipment, film it, and we're going to live stream it so everybody can actually see the debate itself. I have a question. Why should someone who voted Democrat vote Republican? Well, here's the thing. I think that there's a lot of stock being put into this party or that party. I think that it comes down to you have to look, all of us need to do a better job at looking into these candidates, all of them for every position. Yeah, I can see you. But let's say, okay, the Democrat Party is not the party that it used to be, or at least visually. It used to pretend to be for the workers and all this for the common man, right? It hasn't been that for a very long time. They're calling for open borders. They're wanting to give blanket amnesty to illegal immigrants. That's not what's in the best interest of America. And if you're going to spend your time and energy begging for America to open its borders, then you obviously don't have Americans' best interests at heart. We've seen it over and over. I'm not going to bash the Democratic Party. There's plenty of that going on. There's plenty of reasons why I think that the Democratic Party has lost touch. Democratic Party, whatever you want to call it. The party of our parents and grandparents that they believed in has gone so far left, it'll give you whiplash. They want, and again, I can understand the youth, especially that are being taken in, and those holdovers, the hold-ons that are like, well, it used to be this, so maybe what they're talking about, maybe I'm just misunderstanding. No, I understand that desire to cling to the party of your youth that you truly believed in, but unfortunately, it has just moved so far left. The party that gets angry if you say anything about radical Islam is the same party that doesn't understand that these people are killing people. These Muslim countries, for example, are throwing gay people off of buildings, um, stoning people to death. I mean, it's unfortunate that they don't get the hypocrisy. The other thing, if you look into the walk away movement, Brandon Straka actually talks, and there are many videos of people that have walked away from the Democratic Party for, in my opinion, good reason. They used to proclaim to be the party of tolerance and inclusiveness, and now if you don't openly denounce Trump, you're a racist, you're a homophobe, you're this, you're that. How about we just stop calling people names and focus on running the country? That would be a good idea. That'd be a good start. Let's look at the House, for example. Instead of trying to push through some of these crazy proposals, how about we work on getting America fixed? Let's focus on getting some border security. Let's stop demonizing our federal agencies like Immigration and Customs Enforcement. It boggles my mind. It boggles my mind that these things are considered okay. Do you have anything? Okay. One thing that I would like to see a lot more of is candidates engaging with regular people and being able to see this. I think that there's so many prepared videos and press releases, especially to some of the people that are already serving on the other side, for example, that already hold elected office. We don't get to see them as they really are, and I think that's why it's really important for us as candidates to have things like this so that we can talk to people one on one, kind of, and they can see what we're about. I don't think that there's enough of that. I would like to see a lot less name calling across the aisle and a lot more working together. And that's one reason I'm not going to vote along party lines. I have the things that I very stringently believe. Told you my priority list on that. America first, and Indiana before that, and Northwest Indiana before that. Uh, my constituents, once elected, are the most important people, not the leaders of the GOP or the DNC or even the president. I am absolutely willing to work with the president. I think it'd be awesome to meet him. But I'm not going to vote for something just because someone tells me to, regardless of what party they're from, the GOP, the DNC, or the office of the president. I'm going to vote for something because it's in the best interests of the constituents of my district. And I think that there's not enough of that. People are unwilling to cross party lines, especially these days. They don't want to work with anyone from the other side of the aisle. They just want to yell and scream and stomp and all the things that they do. It's gotten worse, unfortunately. And I think that we need to see a lot more reaching across the aisle. And I get it. Some of these people will be very difficult to be in the same room with. Uh, Nancy Pelosi tearing up the speech was one of the worst things I think I've ever seen from our government. Absolutely ridiculous. It's going to be very hard to work with her, but assuming she's still there, I will do that because that's what the job entails. So, well, I've been on here for an hour and a half. If anyone else has any questions, now's the time because I'm gonna wrap it up pretty soon. I'm sure everyone has more pressing matters to attend to. It'd be nice if we could just sit here and hang out all night with nothing else to do, but I gotta go. I gotta go play a game with my kid. I promised him I would. So last call for your most pressing questions. You can hit me up on the Messenger app. You can type it in here, although it seems like we're having issues with that again. Or you can ask your question directly to Elizabeth if you have anything. I think I've covered all your questions that I have gotten. So, anything? Okay. It appears to be it. Thank you very much. I really appreciate everyone's time. I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to try to do this a couple times a week, get people maybe that haven't heard this yet. And thank you for coming out to join me tonight and making me worthy of an hour and a half of your time. Thank you very much. So good night. Click this one off.